So everyone, this is Tyler, who will be doing today's presentation on ag channel maintenance. I am recording this, so it will be available on the ODA website probably by the end of the week. However, the presentation he is giving, the PowerPoint and some fact sheets are already up and available for you. Just go to Oregon.gov/ODA and then navigate to the SWCD training page. Should be easy. So, all right, Tyler, I will hand it over to you. I'm going to give you screen control here, make you a presenter. And you can go ahead and take it away and make sure to ask questions in the chat box or verbally if you want to, folks.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Manitsis, and I am the Agricultural Drainage Channel Maintenance Specialist here at the Oregon Department of Agriculture. A little background about me is I grew up in Eastern Oregon before coming over and attending Oregon State University. And after graduating in fall of 2018, I then started with ODA in June of 2019 with the Produce Safety Program, and then I moved up to the Water Quality Program and Natural Resources Program to work with ag drainage channel maintenance in February of 2020. Feel free to ask any questions that you have throughout my presentation. Can everyone see my screen all right? All right.
Looks great, Tyler.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Eric. So today we're going to talk about ag drainage channel maintenance. This was a program that started in fall of 2019, and it really started with Mike Powers. He did a lot of the work to get this program through Oregon legislature and work with a lot of environmental groups and the other state agencies that we work with to get this program off and running. And then last fall, Mike had the opportunity to take a position with SEIU, our union, and that calls for him to be away from ODA for 2 years. So it is now myself and Ellen Hammond, our program lead, as well as a couple others in our program working on this program. So with that, let's get started. So here's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to give a brief history of the program. Then we're going to talk about ag drainage channel maintenance, what that is and what we're doing. And then I will give an update on our program and give you guys some information on where to go from here. So in the past, we have faced many challenges with ag channel maintenance that has brought this program about and brought to the start of this program. If it's all right with everyone, I'm going to turn my camera off as I'm getting some feedback and breaking up a little bit. All right, so there are many challenges that brought this program about. So first off, drainage of ag lands is vital for Oregon, and that drainage requires channel maintenance. So the channel maintenance for the past 20 years required a DSL permit, and that also would sometimes require a federal permit. There were some exemptions for small projects, such as about 100 cubic yards per project, but really anything over than that would require a strenuous DSL permit, and that is Department of State Lands. So some of the challenges was that permit from Department of State Lands was costly and it was complicated, and that involved or that brought up that no permits were issued in the past 20 years. And so that would mean that in the past 20 years, either the work was not getting done, which is not good, and or the work was getting done without a permit, and that is also not good. So here is what we came up with as a solution. Our solution is that we needed to come up with a way to maintain drainage responsibly, but we needed an effective statewide regulatory process that would make it easier for the landowners. So legislature came up with a bill, and that was known as House Bill 2437, or some people referred to it as the ditch bill, and now we refer to it as the channel bill, and that was codified in rule in Oregon regulatory statute, and that called us at ODA to work with DSL and ODF&W on this new program. So this new program, we refer to it as Ag Drainage Channel Maintenance, or ADCM, and this allows channel maintenance that protects the ecological functions of those channels. But some of our goals were to simplify the regulatory process, improve awareness and compliance, while also encouraging landowner assistance. Some of the ways we're encouraging landowner assistance is giving them the opportunity to provide feedback on a couple of our documents, whether that's our best management practices document that provides them with a direction on their ag channel maintenance, or to provide feedback on our forms as well. So here are the channels that qualify for this program. To qualify for the Ag Channel program, the channels need to be traditionally maintained. And those can be actual ditches, whether they were man-made, or they can also be streams. And they need to have provided drainage, at least in the past 5 years, to agricultural lands. And currently, we cannot have anybody apply for ESH streams. So the channels need to be non-ESH, which is essential salmonid habitat. And then the channels also need to be dry during the time that the landowner is doing the work. And that is where we are working with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife for the dry maintenance time periods throughout the state of Oregon. So for our program, legislature, when this was passed by legislature, it changed a DSL permit to a ODA notification process. A couple keys that I want to point out is that this is a no-cost application for the landowners, and then it is a 45-day process from application to notification. And if that 45-day process goes by and the landowner has not heard anything, then the notification goes into effect in the way that they applied. So if they hear back from us, then we might give them a couple of different regulations and a couple of requirements that they need to meet. But if they have not heard back from us, then it moves forward as applied. So there's 23 requirements that a landowner needs to have in mind when they are doing the work. So, and those include the stream side vegetation, timing of work, what equipment they use, and then wetland and habitat protection. Sometimes when a landowner cannot meet all 23 requirements, then they can apply for what is called a variance. And that is another application that we'll talk about a little bit more later. But when they apply for a variance, we will meet with ODF&W, and if a landowner has a certain requirement that they can't meet, but they still need to do the work, then we'll be able to grant them that variance to meet all the other requirements, but it might come with some additional conditions that they need to meet in order to do the work appropriately. So our current program involves working with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife as well as the Department of State Lands. So when a landowner submits an application for a notification, then us at ODA will receive that application. Then we will consult with ODF and W, and if there's any disagreements, then DSL will have the final say. Currently, in the last year, we have not received any applications, but we are working with SWCDs. We're working with a couple of our other environmental groups, like Oregon Farm Bureau, and then and Trout Unlimited and Water Watch, and then it might lead into ODA and ODF and W needing an on-site visit. Then once the application process has gone through and we have let a landowner know that the notification has been complete, then ODA will be in charge of the compliance aspect and DSL will be in charge of the enforcement aspect. Another thing that legislature called for in this bill was a study from OSU on the impacts of ag channel maintenance. And currently, OSU has 11 applicants asking to participate in this study. And that study will take place over the next 5 years, and then they will make a presentation to Oregon legislature to let them know the ins and outs and what ag channel is impacting on the land. So our program will allow for temporary storage of spoils along the channels, and that will allow for adjacent hydric soils and wetlands as well. But we have been working to avoid placement in natural and undisturbed wetlands, and we did recently go through a rules change, and we worked with our rules advisory committee, and so that will be avoided in the future, and that will be permanent part of our rules come March 1st. Some more aspects of our program is that it will increase the sediment removal limits. So anytime a landowner wanted to remove more than 100 cubic yards of spoils, then they had to go through that DSL permit process that I spoke about. However, if they currently, they can now apply to remove up to 3,000 cubic yards per linear mile, and that is on a 5-year basis. So when a landowner applies for this notice process, then that will be for a 5-year notification, and they can remove up to 3,000 cubic yards per linear mile per 5 years. And that will be restricted to new deposits that have accrued in their channels, and so they cannot widen or deepen their channels, as that would conflict with water rights and such. Here is a map of the notice review process. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, when a landowner submits the form, that is when the 45-day timeline begins. So the next step is that we will receive the form and determine if it is complete or not. If it is complete, then it will move on. And if it is not, then it will go back to the landowner. And we have a 5-day time period that we have to complete that review in. Then the next step is that ODF and W will review it. And there's many different aspects that they can work with. Either they can request a site visit to clarify the conditions, or if there's no changes to the application, then they will let us know at ODA and we will certify that application. If they request new conditions, then they will send it to us and we will discuss that with ODF and W before getting in touch with the landowner. And if we agree with their new conditions, then we will certify the application. But if not, then we will notify DSL, and this is where DSL will have the final say. So all in all, this will take 45 days in full, and a landowner will have their answer whether they need to work more with the application or if they have been certified. And once that application is certified, then ODA has the job to notify the landowner, and we will enter it into a document that we will then post on the website. So here's a little bit more about the OSU study of impacts. So as I said, that is a 5-year project, and that relies on volunteer landowners. So if any of the SWCD districts have landowners that you think are going to be doing channel maintenance in the next 5 years, and they would be willing to participate in this study, then I highly encourage you to get in touch with Dr. Guillermo, and he is a OSU professor and extension fisheries specialist, and he is conducting this study, and then he is working with our hydrologist at ODA, Paul Measles, and Paul is kind of our liaison between ODA and OSU, and helps us learn more about what OSU is doing. And like Eric said, this PowerPoint is available on the website, so you guys can share it with your landowners. So now as we get into our update, us at the Ag Drainage Channel Maintenance Program are really focusing currently on the Willamette Valley and Umpqua basins, and we are awaiting legislature that is currently in Oregon legislature to phase this program in statewide. So currently our website is up and running. However, we have been working on a rebranding that was recently accepted, and so that will cause our forms to be a little out of date, and we are currently working on updating all of that. Today is a great opportunity and a great example of our outreach to SWCDs, and then tomorrow night is a great example as I am doing an hour-long training with a couple producers. Polk County SWCD has allowed me that opportunity, so I'm very grateful for that. Currently, our MOU is in draft for ODA, ODF&W, and DSL, and that will really hammer out some of the details on how our 3 agencies will work together. And then, like I said, recently we passed a rules revision for undisturbed wetlands that will not allow landowners to place their spoils in those undisturbed wetlands. And then OSU has been making some great progress on their study. And as I said, we are up to 11 landowners that are currently working with them on that study, but they are constantly looking for more in the area. So the forms and processes that are currently ready is we have a draft notice form on our website, and we are currently working to update that with all the newest information. And then I talked a little bit about the variance request, and if a landowner cannot meet all 23 requirements, then they can submit a variance request. And a couple of examples of what they might not be able to meet is like what side of the channel they are working on, whether their channel is dry outside of the dry maintenance time period, such as that. And then we also have a expedited review request. And so if a landowner does not think they have the full 45 day period, and the channel maintenance is going to be required for safety of individuals or safety of the public, or it might wipe out a road, then those are a couple examples of why we might accept an expedited review, and we will rush the process to get their notification accepted. And then we are also working with ODF&W and DSL on a ESH review request. And so a little bit more about that is that DSL has a process where if a landowner thinks that the ESH designation on one of their channels is incorrect, then they can put in a request for that ESH to be reviewed. And due to them not being able to do channel maintenance under this program, if their channel is ESH, then they would have to submit a review request and have that process go through before they could apply for this program. And then the last couple months, I have been working very hard on a best management practices manual. Currently, our interim manual is up on our website, and we are working on a permanent manual and getting some landowner feedback for that. For the next steps for a landowner, they would submit a notice form, and if they had any questions, then they could get in touch with me or Ellen, our program lead, and they would mail that to us, fax it, or email, and then we would, once that notice is accepted, we would validate that by posting it on the website below. And I have that again later. So here's our program personnel. Margan Allen is our water quality manager. Ellen Hammond has taken over for Mike Powers and is the lead of the program. And then there is myself, and I'm considered the ADCM specialist. So if landowners or if members of SWCD staff or board of directors or you guys have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. And then we also have Kevin Finn, who is working with the compliance aspect of the program, and then Paul Measles, who is working with the OSU study, helping out on both aspects of that. So currently we have a Gov delivery system that sends out a mass email, and if you would like to receive those email updates, then you can sign up at oda.direct/ag-channel-updates. And so anytime we send out an update, it would go to the list that is connected to and send out that mass email. So like I said, here's the informational page. It has our website on the top and the email updates on the bottom. And so we have a lot of information up on the website. We have our draft forms, the interim BMP manual, and then we have a little bit more background about House Bill 2437 and what led up to it. And then we also have a lot more information on our water quality program here at Oregon Department of Agriculture. And so then if you or a landowner that you know has more questions or needs to get in touch with us here at ODA, you can reach me there at my office or my cell. Currently I'm working from home, so my office is directed to my cell. And then I also have my email there for anyone. And then you can also reach Ellen, as she is available at that number, as well as her email. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you say a little bit more about what the OSU study is mostly focused on? Is it looking at the effects on the hydrology? Or is it on water quality? Is it the hydrologic budget? Is it, you know, rare plants? What is there kind of a list of topics that they're investigating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe they are looking at the vegetation and wildlife habitat impacts of ag channel maintenance. So they will be doing testing on channels to see what kind of wildlife is in that channel currently before the ag channel maintenance happens. And then they will return to that channel after the maintenance has happened to see if there is a difference and how that is affecting the wildlife habitat and the numbers of wildlife in the channel. And then due to it being they requested that it be a 5-year program so that every year they can return to that channel and see how long it takes for that channel to get back to normal.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and this is Ellen. They're also looking at water quality and macroinvertebrates. So they're doing a bunch of different sampling. And here's a question. Can you speak on how this may affect irrigation districts who have open channel conveyance systems in canals, roadside ditches, and other channels? We just had that conversation this morning, and we're still trying to figure that out. And so you've brought up exactly the issues that we're not sure about, and we're, in fact, after this call, I'm calling up Department of State Lands to have a conversation with them about that. And so unfortunately, we don't have a good answer on that yet, but as soon as we do, it will be on our website. Here's another question from Rhonda at Umpqua. Tyler, have you figured out how the coastal areas are going to work into the ag channel maintenance rule? And I'll let Tyler, do you want to start with that?
Well, I'm kind of hoping you might take it, Ellen. So hi everyone. That was Ellen speaking, our program lead. And in response, Rhonda, that's kind of a never-ending question here as we are constantly working to figure that out. But such questions involving coastal areas and tidal influence, that it kind of brings some information into ag channel maintenance that is tough for us, but Ellen has had more experience in that, so I'm going to let you take it.
Well, thank you. And actually, I'm going to pass it on because I just discovered that our boss, the manager, is on this call and has offered to respond. So Margan, if you could respond to both questions that are in the chat box from Paul and from Rhonda. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, folks. I'll flash my face so you can see me, but I'm going to turn it off now to make sure my voice stays steady. So yeah, Ellen did a nice job of answering that regarding the question from Paul. The simple answer is irrigation ditches would be exempt. Okay, that's the simple answer. And then there's going to be some gray areas, and it's those gray areas that we have to explore. Things along the lines of if an irrigation ditch also serves as a drainage ditch, and some of those interesting cases where you might have a regular channel that sometimes also conveys irrigation water and may be seasonally dry. So there's going to be all these kind of edge cases and gray areas that we are hustling right now to try to clarify, and are going to have some good conversations with DSL. Rhonda, that's a great question. Thanks for bringing that up. In some sense, I'd almost push, I'll ask you, Rhonda, does a tidally influenced channel that is dry long enough for it to be maintained while the channel is dry exist? If that exists, technically it can be in the program. So if you can show me where one of those things exists, you can help us out. It may be an edge case. And Derek, are landowners, water users required to provide a base bed elevation to maintain to? Seems unclear how folks, I'll come back to that, Rhonda, thanks, or how to stick within the requirements. Well, Derek, yeah, we are not going as far as asking for sort of an engineered expectation. It's going to be right now best professional judgment, I would describe it, and in our attempt to go in and see whether they maintained, let me see if I can say this correctly, a consistent grade and minimized basically the excavation and maintenance work to that necessary to maintain drainage. Gray, squishy, right? But that's the flavor of the language we've been given. So that's the best I can describe right now. But we are literally, since we're growing a program from scratch, we, along with all of you, and really would love your feedback, are learning right along. We'll be learning right along with you. I hope that answers that question to the best I'm able to. And Rhonda, thank you. Okay, so sometimes they do dry out and they may exist. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Sunday if we can get out in the field and actually look at one of those seasonally dry, tidally influenced channels. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that answered the question so far. And thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you, Margan and Ellen. Yeah, to add a little bit more into Derek's question about the base of the channel. Yeah, we are learning along with the landowners, and we know that landowners want to do what is best for their land. So they're not just going to dig out 3 feet down into a small piece of their channel, whereas they have to grade the entire channel appropriately. So that's where we are going to rely on landowners and working with them. And if a landowner were to break any of the requirements, we would love to work with them on the compliance aspect, and are hoping that we don't have to turn things over to a enforcement case with DSL. So yeah, thank you all. Are there any other questions? Shannon, it is good to be seen.
So Tyler, can you talk about, you've mentioned that ODA would do compliance and DSL would do enforcement. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means and how ODA would look at compliance?
Yeah, so similar to our water quality program here at ODA is we always want to work from a compliance aspect to help a landowner bring their land, or in this case, their water quality or their ag channels into compliance before it were to turn into a enforcement case. And so we're going to make sure that they know all the requirements, and that they are well educated on the best management practices and how to move forward. And then we will make sure to communicate any additional conditions that might have come up in the application process or the discussion with ODF&W, so that they don't accidentally break any of those conditions. And we would, like I said, we would much rather have something be looked at from a compliance aspect, and then if a landowner were to blatantly break one of the conditions, then we would have to turn it over to an enforcement aspect with DSL. Does that answer your question, Ellen?
Yep, I just thought that people might be wondering about that. Thank you.
So
So there's
Derek,
another, yeah.
Yeah, so I did allude to the idea that not all these channels are constructed ditches. Which agency will be making the determination of what is an ag channel? So yeah, so earlier in my PowerPoint, I did say that it is ditches as well as some streams. And so a landowner might have something that they refer to as Grandpa's ditch, and it's out back and is a drainage ditch that has been moved to allow for the most land to be used in a field. However, that could still be shown as a stream. And so we will be working on that aspect and working with some of our maps that we have here at ODA. And then, so yeah, it won't just be constructed ditches. Ellen, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, Derek, did that answer your question?
I think it's probably easier if I just unmute and not type this.
Yep, go ahead. Let's work on this.
Yeah, so more specifically, you know, over here on the east side, we have a lot of streams that sub out in the late summer, but many of them are used for irrigation, and you know, through like typical funding platforms, we're not able to find any funds for these people to maintain these channels. So come springtime, when floodwaters hit, we get a lot of large sediment that drops out, especially towards the mouth of these channels. So what I'm alluding to is that there's not a lot of funding out there to be able to permit these projects to get these channels maintained, and I'm curious if stuff like this falls under this rule.
Well, I'm going to run that to Mardan, since she's the one that's leading the charge on trying to figure out what's qualifies.
Hey, I'm just let me, if anybody, if I'm not coming through on audio, please drop something in a chat and I'll watch that. I think as Ellen described, well, let me try to narrow down the world here. Remember, first, we were given, you know, the Ag Channel program really is, we don't have expanded authority above and beyond what the DSL removal fill program already has. So that, you know, already our world is confined to what is already in the removal fill program, and then a subset of that. So it's going to have to be dry and non-essential habitats. So that's the broad sense of the world we're going to operate in. That could include intermittent channels, that can include perennial channels, technically, if they run dry. And the big question for us is around the constructed ditches, which are not modified stream channels. We're still working out the fine points on that. It would appear currently from DSL removal fill guidance that if a constructed ditch has open, unrestricted access to a fish-bearing stream that would be in scope. Oh, there was another parameter. Forgive me, I'm forgetting it. But
the fish and game.
We need to keep
the fish and
the
food and game fish. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. Yes, that it basically unrestricted ability for food and game fish to be able to access the ditch. Those are described as being in scope for the removal fill program right now. But again, Derek, I wish I could give you a real straight up firm answer to that. We're still trying to figure out if something that is an upland constructed ditch, and especially if it just does not appear to have access to a fish bearing kind of a channel, if we can say those are out. We're still working on that fine point.
Oh, no, that answers my question. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to say that we're going to be learning with every application that we receive, and trying to help out the landowners as much as possible. And so with that aspect, if it does provide drainage from agricultural lands, like you said, if some spoils were being pulled off the agricultural lands and that were to block up a irrigation stream, then most likely it might qualify. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Derek. All right, does anybody else have any questions? If not, then I'll turn my camera back on really quick. And just like to say thank you to everyone for having me. And Eric, thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. Thank you very much. That was great. This was recorded, so it will be available online, as well as the handouts and the presentation. Just go to our website and you can find it there. All right. Thank you all and have a great day, and see some of you maybe in about 20 minutes. Take care.